Welcome to Feminism Today, everyone. I'm Sophia Johnson in New York. The white supremacist who killed 10 people in the Tops supermarket in Buffalo, New York in May of this year pled guilty to state charges of domestic terrorism as a hate crime, murder, and attempted murder. Each murder charge comes with a mandatory sentence of life in prison without the chance of parole. Joining us now is Mark Talley, Executive Director of Agents for Advocacy, and to talk about the community's day in court, restorative justice, and what healing means to him. Talley's mother, Geraldine C, was killed in the terrorist attack, and he founded Agents for Advocacy in her memory. Mark Talley, welcome to Feminism Today.
Oh, definitely glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
We're in the middle of the holiday season, just coming out of Thanksgiving, moving into Christmas, when families get together and celebrate. I wonder if you can tell us a little bit about how your family and you are doing at this time.
I know I'm doing great. I was mostly an introverted person prior to 5/14 and even afterwards. So I really wasn't necessarily a big family person. The main person I really talked to was my mother. So I can really only speak to me, but I'm doing great as one possibly could after a tragedy like such as this.
Yeah. And of course, we're here. We're really, so proud of what you're doing and what you're doing in honor of your mother. So thank you for joining us today. I know that your mother, from your very early childhood on, had raised you as a single mom and had really high standards for you. What do you think she's thinking about the work you're doing and the service that you're doing in honor of her life and her legacy?
Well, I think she would definitely appreciate it. I mean, she may not necessarily like the clothes that I wear when I'm doing it. She hated me constantly wearing hoodies and
Mhm,
sweatpants, and that's the main attire I wear when I'm out in the community.
mhm.
Yeah, I definitely think she would love all the good that I'm currently doing and trying to do in the next couple upcoming months and hopefully years.
Tell us a little bit about the attire you have chosen as sort of your advocacy wardrobe, if you will.
Yeah, it's mainly just my hoodies with my logo, Agents for Advocacy, and just all black sweatpants. I remember when Ben Crump first came here and his investigator Clifford Jones,
Yeah.
he was talking to me about, you got to make sure what you wear and how you portray yourself
Mhm.
uh, in the media, because people will try to judge you for that, every which way. But you know what? I tried it for the first couple weeks or two. I tried, wearing the suit, full tailored suit, having the khaki pants, dress shirt, and tie. But eventually, you gotta be true to yourself and who you are.
Mhm.
I was never a suit and tie type of person.
Yeah, yeah, sure. That makes sense. Tell me a little bit about what you saw in the courtroom.
Um, it's kind of like what African Americans in this nation have seen, for hundreds and hundreds of years. We saw a coddling of a white man to make him seem like he's a young boy who didn't know what he was doing and the implications and the impact of what he made by his decisions. He was dressed. They had him looking and shaved like basically a prepubescent, sixth grade sixth grade female at that, instead of the monster that he looked like in the mug shots.
Mm,
And you know, people people of his hue get that, while when the roles is reversed, um, they try to make minorities look as scary as possible. But in his case, they gave him a nice clean shave, cookie cutter haircut to make him seem as harmless as possible.
Do you think that was deliberate?
Absolutely. Everything everything is deliberate in what people do. They say, there's coincidences in life, and I don't believe that. I believe people know exactly what they're doing, when they do it,
Mhm.
and how they do it. And mechanisms of society has intertwined the racism throughout this country.
Mhm.
So, people know how the game and how the system works.
Yeah.
When you see a black man in a hoodie, it's entwined in people's mind that you have to cross the street. When you see a white person in a hoodie, it's not necessarily entwined in your mind that you have to cross the street. You see a black person in dreads, you automatically think, he's dangerous. You can see a white person in dress as well and don't even have second thoughts about it. So when you see people see a clean shaving, young white man who's kind of frail looking, you don't think he's older than what he actually is. You automatically think he's younger.
Mm.
While through statistics, they judge 13 and 14-year-old boys as already as men.
Mm. Tell me a little bit about the history of racism in this community. Has it always been so?
Um, I believe it is getting worse over time. Now, there's always been racism everywhere you go in the country, at the governmental level, through socioeconomics, since the transatlantic slave trade. So racism is everywhere you go here in the United States. When it comes down to each city, it's basically dependent on the socioeconomics of your environment and what you're in. And here in the city of Buffalo, that's basically the east side.
Mm.
I mean, we have, if you're an African American male in this city, you're twice as likely probably not have a high school diploma. You're more likely to have some form of mental illness, um, more so probably have cancer, have any chronic and preventable diseases, have a lack of education, have a high school diploma, working part-time and seasonal jobs in which you can't pay your rent or even think about home ownership. And
Mhm.
that poverty cycle exists for generation after generation. And all of that is taking place here on the east side. And the east side is somewhat separated by Main Street here. And you can just go from the east side or downtown of Main Street. The further you go north, you start seeing it starts going to higher socio-economic status communities. And you can just see the difference, from the small mom and pop shops or more greenery in the area.
Mhm.
You can feel the difference, whether you stop driving on potholes everywhere and the road starts becoming smoother. You
Yeah.
feel the difference. It doesn't it doesn't smell like garbage.
Yeah.
The air starts smelling cleaner. And I believe that's pretty much in every population here in the country where there's a high majority of African American population.
T- I'm curious. You've really painted, a very stark pictures of sort of what the community's been going through historically. Do you think the his what How do you think the history played into some of the experiences that spilled over for 514?
And I believe that goes back to the nation as a whole. The nation as a whole, determined from onset that you know black lives, African Americans, we
Mhm.
weren't we weren't equal. From
Mhm.
whether you want to call us three-fifths of men or using us as property, using us as money,
Mhm.
to very, I tell people all the time, the United States really didn't see us as equal until the Civil Rights Act got passed.
Mhm.
Anytime before then, we weren't equal. There was no such thing as separate but equal. It was separate, and we always got the worst. You can have things going from the when the war happened, World War II, when
Mhm.
you had African Americans who fought for their country and came back and was considered not even second but third class citizens.
Mhm.
We can go from the onset of when the doctors sold the cells out of the young woman, HeLa cells, and just started using them. and not even giving her family any type of profit, not
Mm,
even her family or her know what they did. We can go from the American government giving African Americans syphilis and not treating them.
mm,
Go from the home ownership, when the home ownership bill, I forgot the name that got passed in the 1970s, late 1970s, in which how it dictated there was redlining and discrimination against prioritizing African American home ownership, and
mm,
that still affects us today. You can go on any type of social media site or even just look in the news. If you're around a large urban population, how it's deemed that your house is less of value. You can see how black homeowners, they get their house appraised, and then they have maybe just somebody white friends or relatives or someone they just know go into the house, and it gets further appraised even a higher value. We can go from the crack epidemic in a response of how the government treated that to how it's treating the opioid epidemic.
I see.
So much, once again, history is filled with so much racism.
Yeah,
The United States is baseball is the national pastime of the United States. I'll
yeah.
say racism is more of a better affiliation to that.
Hmm. Can we talk a little bit about your experience or this experience within the justice system? Does it feel like justice to you?
Um, I'll say justice is really in the eye of the beholder, in the eye of the beholder, and what you're looking for. I mean, I don't know. Justice for me would probably, me being in a room with him for just 10 minutes.
Mm,
I mean, I always say I want I want his parents to feel how Emmett Till's parents felt,
mm,
and that's how I want his parents to feel. Like, I don't want there to be any type of discussion of whether it should be an open or closed casket funeral. Maybe that would be my idea of justice. For maybe somebody else, it would just be him going to jail for life. For
yeah,
somebody else, it'll be maybe the death penalty. So it depends on necessarily what you mean by justice.
right.
He eventually, well, he technically is currently paying for his actions and will be for the rest of his life since he's pleading guilty. But it all depends what you mean by justice.
Yeah. Mark, how has the community in Buffalo responded to this event? We saw certainly an outpouring initially. I'm wondering, these many months later, moving into next year, what it feels like in the city.
Well, it's still a bunch of love and outpouring. Um, Once again, for me personally, I'm kind of over it. I mean, I've been over this now for the past 4 or 5 months. I mean, we know what happened, and we know what we need to do to get over it.
Mhm,
Know what steps we need to take so it can't ever happen again.
mm,
Know what steps we need to take to make the East Side a better area.
mhm,
Came here scouting and decided which area and population that he wanted to kill the most black people at. He really didn't have to scout for that long. And that's the problem. We need to make stuff more equal here, and that's not getting done yet.
mm,
Like, people still want to stay on step one and kind of just wallow in their feelings and feel sorrow
mm,
instead of having to move forward. Like, so when it comes to all of these memorials everywhere or memoriams, and people constantly wanted to talk about this subject, I compare it to like showing a picture of oxygen to a man that's drowning.
mm.
We can keep doing all of this, but eventually it's not helping no one.
You've said elsewhere racism will always have a presence in the United States. Matter of fact, you just gave us some really powerful examples, conjuring up some historical stuff and really painting a picture of what feels like disenfranchisement, racism, discrimination. What do activists, people like you, get right or wrong about the work that needs to be done on the ground to address these fundamental issues?
I would say probably we're all stuck in our own ways in whatever way we want. I mean, you had Malcolm X. He was no, he was stuck in his way of wanting to bring the fight to the oppressors.
Mhm.
And you had people like Martin Luther King who didn't necessarily want to bring the fight, but wanted to turn the other cheek to show that we're better.
Yeah.
So I would say for most activists, it's we're kind of stubborn in our own ways. Granted, we probably could each work together to make a better outcome, but you know what? Like everything in life, especially with men, we all have our egos.
Yeah. I recently watched Reverend Al Sharpton's new documentary, Loudmouth. I think I mentioned it to you when we first spoke. Reverend Al, this documentary really captures his decades of fighting the good fight, right? But importantly, I also see the transition, and I recognize the transition is underway for the next generation of advocacy. What should advocacy and activism look like in the 21st century as distinct to some of the challenges we saw during the Jesse Jackson, Martin Luther King, you mentioned Malcolm X, and of course Reverend Al Sharpton? What will this generation of scholars, of activists, do differently on the ground?
Well, I think we'll definitely be a lot more educated than previous activists, saying how we grew up in the social media age and we saw what they were doing from a very young age.
Mhm.
I mean, I didn't know, maybe possibly through word of mouth or maybe just newspapers or from hearing other people. But you had the likes of Al Sharpton, Jesse Jackson. Um, they were hearing about the stuff that Martin Luther King did and Malcolm X, even in Jesse Jackson's case, walking right there with him.
Mm.
They were doing their activism. They were just once again just giving firsthand knowledge to people younger than them. Now, when it comes to our age, people like me, maybe middle to older millennials and not an iPhone generation, um, you know what? The phone is the most dangerous weapon. You can easily get lost into it. You can now go see firsthand the stuff that Malcolm X was doing, Martin Luther King doing, Al Sharpton, Reverend Jesse Jackson. Um, I forgot his name with the Huey Newton. Um, I forgot his Kwame. I want to say it was something.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You could see firsthand the stuff that they were doing. You have so many people writing books, such as Ibrahim X. I forgot it. How to be an anti-racist.
Yeah,
So much knowledge around you that you can easily just read firsthand on your phone and get lost into.
yeah,
Even if you don't want to read it, you can just have the iPhone play it for you.
yeah,
So I believe at a younger age, we can definitely get more involved. Once again, you have, the iPhone generation. I forgot their generation's name, but you have them right now. They're not standing for no more any type of LGBTQIA issues. You're gonna pronounce me as me, him, they, our, intergender. If not, they're quitting and leaving.
yeah.
They're not. The younger generation isn't standing for stuff that previous generations did um, for a little or even longer time.
Yeah. That's such an important point you raise. I wonder what are some tangible actions the US government or even the local government in Buffalo, maybe the governor, Kathy Hochul, can take now that will make a difference to you and to the other survivors who are sort of left to pick up the pieces.
I believe absolutely nothing. I mean, it goes. No, with all due respect to Kathy Hochul, I mean, no, she's only a governor. I believe all of this stuff is a bigger issue that the nation needs to take. I mean, once again, for 400 years, African Americans in this country was free labor. The American dream is built on the idea of meritocracy, that we are starting off on the same level playing fields, and
Mhm.
that's true. You have families such as the Kennedys who profited off of free African American labor.
Mm.
So if your family has been, you know, eaten over and over again for 400 years, and my family was the one doing the main hard work and labor for your family, you owe me for the 400 years in which my ancestors wasn't getting wasn't getting paid their just due for those 400 years.
Mm-hmm.
You have homes being transferred from generation after generation, and my family wasn't able to get any of those homes due to racism at that time, and due to a lack of either working for free or getting very little pay. So I think the main thing we need is reparations in this country. And people talk about how it'll destroy the economy. Reparations was never given, but when it's fact, reparations was given to Indians and Irish, and even Japanese people here in this country. So it seems like for some reason they don't. The U.S. government doesn't want to write that check for African Americans, because I think it'll somewhat even the playing field, and you
Mm-hmm.
have somehow people believing in the great replacement theory
Yeah.
when only about 12 to 13% of the nation, and ironically 46% of us are in those in the jail prisons.
Mm. I mean, you make an important point here, and a topic that is subject to a great deal of debate. I know in California, the state of California, they're looking at just really how to frame and how to construct reparations for citizens who've been harmed in that particular state. But more on this for sure. Perhaps when the legislation is passed, we can have you come back and talk a little bit more. For now, can we talk a little bit about the mental health toll of this type of injustice? As a social community activist, we hear the word resilience in response to pain and suffering. First of all, what is resiliency? And can we deconstruct this coded language and talk a little bit about the pain of ethno-racial injustice?
Exactly. And I hate when people use the term resiliency. Here was this company organization that just came here calling themselves the Resiliency Center, and trying to help with the families and people in the neighborhood regarding 514. And my thing is that time has passed.
Mm,
It's been close to, if not 7 months right now, since 514.
yeah,
We had other organizations and companies helping us with any type of trauma, PTSD, just wanting to get our emotions out immediately after that.
yeah,
So when it comes down, people wanted to talk about more resiliency, therapy, um, trauma counseling. This is where I go back to how people still want to stay on step one.
mm,
That time, that time is over. It's time to, you know, put on your big boy pants, big boy underwear, and now we got to get the moving so this doesn't happen no more.
yeah,
Unfortunately, through history and what life has shown us, African Americans here in this community, we know how to necessarily get over pain and trauma fast, seeing how we've had to deal with it the most. And for me, I mean, I was over this close to 4 or 5 months ago, and I just want to do everything I can to let's not let let's not have this happen again, especially in areas of low socioeconomic neighborhoods
yeah.
with a lot of minority population. So when people say let's have resiliency, let's talk about this, or let's have some counseling, let's so people don't have any PTSD from this. I mean, being an African American in this country is already having PTSD. So, I mean, although this one white gentleman, well, this one white terrorist, although he came and killed 10 black people and wounded three others. I mean, we just seen a few weeks after that, you
Mm,
know, same thing happen again.
yeah.
So it's no time to constantly sit around and talk about this to get over it. Let's not get over it. Let's have this fresh in our mind, fresh in our systems.
Yeah.
Want them to show these videos, white people coming in killing minorities. I want people to use this anger, and let's make it something positive so this doesn't happen again.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about your mom? You started this project to lift up her name, and as a way to celebrate her life and as a memory of her life. What do you want people to know about your mom?
She loved her family. She loved her coworkers, loved her nieces, nephews, siblings. Definitely didn't like a few of them, but she definitely loved them from the bottom of her heart.
Hmm.
She was always asking, to cook for you, whether you wanted it or not, for birthdays, holidays, like even cause it was the weekend, she would just make any type of food you wanted.
Mm.
I tell
Martini.
people she's completely maybe 180 degrees from me.
Mm. Mark Talley, Executive Director of Agents for Democracy. Thank you so much for joining us this week.
Oh, no problem. Thank you so much. Definitely glad to be here.
And that's it for our program today. Remember, you can follow me and the show on Instagram or Twitter. Thank you so much for watching Feminism Today on Free Speech TV. Join us again next week.